You wanted the best. You've got the best podcast. The hottest podcast in the world. The Chris Voss Show, the preeminent podcast with guests so smart you may experience serious brain bleed. Get ready.
Hi, folks. Chris Voss here from the ChrisVossShow.com, the ChrisVossShow.com. Hey, thanks for tuning in. We certainly appreciate you guys being here. Today, we have another amazing guest on the show. You want to go to youtube.com/Chris Voss and hit the bell notification button so you can see all the wonderful videos we're doing over there. You can also all the different LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, all those different places where all those crazy kids are playing. Goodreads.com/Chris Voss. Be sure to subscribe to the LinkedIn newsletter and the 122,000 LinkedIn business group over there. That thing is amazing. LinkedIn really is crazy these days with all the stuff they have going on. Remember, put your arm around your friend, family, relative, refer the show to them. Tell them to go join the show, sign up for it, and they can get all the amazing content that we have here on the show. Today, we have another amazing lady on the show. She is the Chief Executive Officer of the CABC, a former American diplomat to Canada, and a frequent media commenter and public speaker. Scotty is her name, Maryscott Scotty Greenwood, and she serves as a business and publicly I'm having trouble with all the P's there. The public policy advocate, as well as a communications expert and political strategist to Fortune 500 companies, trade associations, and nonprofit organizations. Scotty is also the managing director and founding partner of Crestview Strategy US, and she serves on public, corporate, and private philanthropic board of directors. Welcome to the show, Scotty. How are you?
Thank you, Chris. Man, that's a mouthful. I'm good. How are you doing?
There you go. There you go. Well, you're my first podcast today. We do 1 to 2 a day, and I think I just haven't hit the ground running, or I'm waiting for the coffee to kick in. So give us your
day, man. That's a lot. You know, in your wind up though, you didn't mention on all the platforms that you mentioned where you can get your fabulous show, you didn't mention TikTok. So I know your listeners and viewers are just waiting for that TikTok debut. I wonder when that's happening.
They are. And you know, in fact, thank you for mentioning that. Reminding me, normally I kick that in there, but I forgot because I don't know. I probably spent 4 hours on TikTok last night, but no, we have the show over there. And
do you really?
Developing. Yeah.
Right.
So we're still trying to get the hang of it. They've been extending the minutes so that we can put longer stuff up. So now we're putting 10-minute stuff up. We just put up Dave Navarro, the Dave Navarro interview up there, so we can check that out. And there'll be more interviews going as we're trying to figure out how to get the crazy kids' attention though, because we're not really like a TikTok sort of.
Yeah,
thing.
Exactly. I don't know how to do that either, but it sure is a lot, very entertaining.
We have so many top authors on and journalists, and they're kind of it's kind of like YouTube. It's a little too highbrow for the crowd. You know, like YouTube's like 10 to 15-year-olds, and
Right.
I'm pretty sure TikTok is 5-year-olds. So
it's all relative, my friend.
That's not true. We just lost the TikTok crowd, all 2 of them. So welcome to the show. Give us your .com so people can find you on the interwebs, please.
Give me your the .com. Sorry, I missed you there. Yeah, ScottyGreenwood.com or CABC.co or Crestview Strategy. Any one of those works.
So let's talk about what you do. Give us kind of a, you've got several different projects and things that are going on in your life. Can you give us kind of an overview of them and rundown of all the hats you wear?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Chris. And the common theme in everything I do is there's just a hint of maple. So I'm here in the United States, and for those of your listeners that might be in other places in the world, I specialize in Canada-U.S. relations. So that's that hint of maple. So we run the Canadian American Business Council, which is the leading bilateral advocacy group for businesses who are conversing with governments about the big issues of the day. So think about supply chains and traveling across borders and commerce and all of that. So Canadian American Business Council, that's a big project. That's one. And, then everything else I do in the consulting world has something to do with Canada. And so that's where Crestview Strategy comes in. It's a public policy and public affairs shop. It started in Canada probably 20 years ago, and I opened up the U.S. business a couple of years ago. We've got a small office in the UK, and so we help people navigate government relations and public affairs. And so if you're a business and you've got a challenge with government, which is almost every business at some point in their life, you call us. We're the Ghostbusters in government relations.
There you go. So probably importing, exporting, dealing with government regulations between U.S. and Canada and stuff.
Exactly right. And everything in between. So sometimes it's a public policy. It's a piece of legislation that you see coming down the pike and you think, gosh, that's really going to have an unintended consequence. It's going to put us out of business somehow. Or maybe the border is closed. I worked on a project, Chris, with the potato farmers of Prince Edward Island, Canada. Over the last several months, the U.S. border closed to their potatoes, and that's their biggest market. And it was a huge problem, and people it risked losing their family farms after generations. And so we worked with the governments on both sides of the border, and with the farmers, and with the media, and a bunch of civil society. And we got the border together. All of us got the border reopened, and they're now planting. So we were able to make it in time for the planting season, which is this spring. So things like that have a little Canada-U.S. Aspect to it. That's what I do all day, every single day.
Yeah. Hey, asking for a friend, the president, do you have any baby formula spare kicking around?
Exactly. I shouldn't laugh at that. That's a serious issue. I know the president invoked what's known as the Defense Production Act to try to get the supply chains going for infant formula, and hopefully that will work. But that's exactly the kind of thing that we work on, Chris, is when there is something that happens that needs to be addressed quickly or urgently. Typically we would get involved with something like that. Baby formula, thankfully, we're not in that, but we wish everybody, Godspeed, because it, you can't. Moms and dads can't afford to drive hours, to pick up their baby formula.
I thought Canadians raised their babies on maple syrup. I thought that's what the baby formula in Canada.
Well, that's why they don't have a supply crunch. They're doing just fine up there. The problem is here in the U.S. So,
I just got some Canadian honey, raw honey from Amazon, but it's from Canada.
Yeah,
amazing.
Did it still have the ice crystals in it, or was it?
Yeah, they're in the bottom. They're in the bottom. But the nice thing is they're like, I guess the farms are spread out and it's really open territory, at least from what I read. But the honey's like really good. It doesn't have that nice U.S. pollution in it yet. So
Canada has kind of all the great things about the U.S. and not as many of the bad things. It's this vast, huge landmass. It's absolutely incredibly huge, and it's got 3 oceans, right? Atlantic, Pacific, and Arctic. And it's got mountains, prairies, beaches, it's forests. It's really a remarkable place in the world. And if people haven't been there, dust off your passports and head up. I was just actually earlier today, Chris, I was talking to the Canadian Minister of Tourism, Randy Boissonnault. He's a member of Parliament from Alberta, and Alberta I don't know if you've been, it's got to be one of the most glorious places on earth. You go up to Banff and Lake Louise in the Canadian Rockies, absolutely spectacular.
Yeah. It's interesting how we're so globalized now and supply chains, we never really, I think we always took for granted the supply chains that we had developed for so many years. And then when coronavirus hit, and then of course, trying to come out of coronavirus and supply chain issues, we never really realized how small the world has become.
Well, that's right. And it's not just all of the dislocations and tragedies actually that came from the coronavirus, of which there are many, but it's also things that people might not think about that we think about on a daily basis, which is what happened to borders and what happened, for years and years between Canada and the United States, we've managed our common border, which is, by the way, the longest unmilitarized border in the world. And it's $700 billion a year in economic activity. It's the biggest commercial relationship in the world, too. But our 2 countries have managed our common border together really well. And then when the pandemic happened, we closed our border to discretionary travel, right? And that was the right decision at the time, but then after that, the whole, when are we going to reopen? How are we going to reopen? What do you need to cross the border? What kind of test? What kind of vaccine? What kind of certification? All of that became asynchronous. We diverged. And so if we want our supply chains to get back to where they need to be so everybody can do business again, if we want to travel and see our friends and relatives and our customers and our shareholders on either side of the border, we've got to get back to a place where we are managing our border together. That's important for security, but it's also important for our prosperity. And so that's something that at the Canadian American Business Council we work on, daily, and it's really, really vitally important.
Yeah. And I mean, God bless Canada. Like you say, we've had that great border for so long. I mean, if I was Canadians, I wouldn't let us in. I mean, have you seen us lately?
I don't know. I think we're both lucky. I think we're fortunate in our neighbors, right? You think about neighborhoods today in the world.
That's true.
Can you think of somebody you'd rather have living next door?
Yeah.
I like having the Canadians next door. I hope they like having us. We're like the rowdy downstairs neighbor. Sometimes the music gets a little loud and, you got to call the cops, but we're pretty good neighbors for the most part.
I always joke with my Canadian friends. I go, we're like your drunken brother who's always in trouble. We're like the Billy Carter of the family. And you guys are just up there going, oh, they started another war. Oh my God, they're just off doing asshole American stuff again. When will they ever learn? We're just like running around the world going, fight me. Well,
yeah, except Chris, the only exception I would take with that is I think the problem, on the world stage right now is Russia. And Canada and the United States, we're together on what do we do to fight that particular bully. So I didn't mean to get so serious with you, but I think it's really true. And one of the things, so the U.S. is there with strong defense support as our NATO countries, but Canada has a different approach. Canada has its military support, of course, but Canada is really different because while the U.S. is over there fighting, Canada is saying we're going to welcome the refugees and we're going to welcome the displaced people. So it's kind of a good complement. You got one that's an enforcer and one that's a healer, and that's sort of the history of Canada, U.S. in a way. We complement each other really well.
Yeah. That Justin Trudeau, man, how come we can't get good looking presidents in our country, man? That guy's like, I don't know. He's a good looking guy. I'm just saying.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I don't know what your cup of tea is there, Chris, but I'm all about.
That's not my cup of tea, but I'm just doing a joke.
Yeah, I'm all about leadership. So as long as our leaders, whoever they are, work together, that's what I care about. I don't know what they look like.
That's the tough part, I guess. And I guess you help navigate that with regulation and everything. What are some other things we want to talk about at what the CABC.co does?
Well, how about let's talk about the second coolest podcast ever. Your podcast got to be number one, obviously.
Well, I mean, I don't know about that.
But a Canada-US podcast for anybody that's really wants to nerd out on bilateral relations is called Canosa Street, like CANUSA Street. And a friend of mine, Chris Sands, who might be the leading scholar, he is the leading scholar on Canada-US, a professor over at the Woodrow Wilson Center. He and I started Canosa Street. It's on Apple and Spotify and anywhere you get your podcasts. SoundCloud, I don't know, what are the other platforms? Amazon. But we started it to explain and explore the Canada-US relationship. It started as a COVID project because everybody's cooped up and we wanted to share our thoughts. And it really, we've had a lot of fun diving into big, important issues. We looked at the trucker blockade as an example. We looked at the pullout from Afghanistan. We're looking at Ukraine. And so Canosa Street is a lot of fun. But actually, Chris, I got to tell you this. It's an actual street, Canosa Street.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. If you, so my in-laws live in northern Vermont. And in northern Vermont, there's a town called Derby Line, and it's right on the Canadian border. And half of the town is in Canada and half of the town is in Vermont. And so the main drag they call Canosa Street because it goes right through Canada, US. So it's an actual street. And that's what we named our podcast after because we're kind of half Canadian, half US.
Oh, I get it. For Canadian and USA for USA.
There you go. Canosa, kind of like Sesame Street, only not as cool.
You didn't want to call it Merc? I'm just kidding. We do the jokes around here. That's
or American with a capital CAN.
Merca.
We worked on all those things, but Canosa is what we came out with.
There you go. So I'm looking at the podcast on Spotify, and I'm sure it's everywhere else. Do you interview? It looks like a lot of people in the government or people who know the government well.
Yeah, we do. We interview public sector, private sector. We try to get people who are knowledgeable. So, as an example, one of the oldest environmental treaties that the U.S. has is the Columbia River Treaty. The Columbia River flows in the Pacific Northwest of our great country. It provides a lot of water to the Pacific Northwest at places like Idaho. And there's a treaty between Canada and the United States about how you manage that joint watershed, right? And so that treaty is coming up for negotiation. Nobody's heard of it. Nobody's thinking about it, except the people either directly in the region or the negotiators. So what we did on Canosa Street is we brought in the lead negotiator. We brought in one of the tribal representatives. We brought in a private sector utility guy. And we try to bring in different perspectives and let people draw their own conclusions about the issues. But, we're trying to up everybody's Canada-US IQ a little bit, Chris.
There you go. Hey, did Quebec ever quit trying to get away from you guys? Like they were just kind of like, we're doing our own thing over here?
Yeah, they try to separate every once in a while. The last serious effort, I think, for separatism was in the 90s. The latest province in Canada that's talking about separating is actually the province of Alberta. I think whenever a region gets grumpy with their central government, they think they can leave. Although sometimes we think about maybe we could just trade. Like if Alberta wanted to leave Canada and join the U.S., I'd be good with that.
You're gonna have to take Texas or Florida. So it has to be a fair trade. Well, I don't know. That's probably a bad thing to say about Alberta. I'm sure they're nice people, but we need to get rid of a couple states, especially Florida. If you've ever read Florida,
I would trade Alberta for Florida. No offense to Florida, but I'd take Alberta. The states, that'd be a good one.
You're gonna enjoy that. But Alberta, man, what's going on with Alberta? Now you guys have like a whole tribe thing going on there with a lot of tribal stuff, and I'm still trying to get up to par on the tribal thing there in Canada.
So look, Canada and the U.S. both have a very difficult history with the original people that lived here before all of us newcomers, came. And what I would say about Canada is they are coming to grips with their history, and they're in a process that the Prime Minister is, prioritized. It's called reconciliation, and it's real. They are working through a lot of kind of a very dark past, actually, Chris, and they're working through to begin to reconcile with the past. They work through apologies. So I think there are some British royals in Canada, as you and I are recording this, that are on an apology tour. I think the Pope has apologized for, the churches did some pretty terrible things to the original cultures. But once you get through the reconciliation and you get to the partnership and you get to collaborating, it's pretty fabulous. The story gets a lot better and a lot more positive. So I mentioned about the Columbia River Treaty. That's an area where the First Nations and original cultures are at the table as part of the negotiating, and their contribution is quite significant. So I think there's, while the past is really hard and challenging, I think the present and the future are very bright.
You've got to reconcile the past, so you can't fix it until you reconcile it. I'm trying to think of a good James Baldwin quote, but it's not coming to mind. We're kind of going through the same process over here and struggling through reconciliation of our 450 years of history of racism and all the ugly things that went on with it, and including what we did to Indians and Native Americans, I should say, and other people. And it's a struggle. Let's put it that way. I think we all know what's going on there.
It is, but Chris, let me just jump in if I could for a second. One of the things that we started, the Canadian American Business Council started, is we have a series now, and it's called Corporate Action on Social Justice. And we take a different issue. We do it kind of once a quarter, and we convene different leaders to talk about, because we're a business council, right? And so what is the business community doing on these big social justice issues? It's a big question. So that's something else that we work on very seriously is corporate action on social justice. We've got we've got a program on that coming up. But if people go to our website, go to CABC.co, and you look on Common Ground or previous events, you can find some of the convenings that we've done on issues like social justice. And we feel very strongly that it's important to have hard conversations and bring the private sector into them.
Definitely. I mean, the one thing man can learn from his history is man never learns from his history, and that's why we just go around and around and around. So that's really cool. Sounds like, how long have you been doing the podcast? How many episodes do you have out there?
Oh gosh, I don't know. We've been doing it for the past year, I think, and we do a couple a month. How many do we have out there? 12 or 14? I have to look.
Yeah,
we're not as many as you, my friend. Not 2 a day. I don't know how you have time for anything else.
I can't feel my legs, pretty much.
Well, from what I see, you don't have legs, so
I don't. That's they cut them
people
off.
will never know.
The reason was I kept leaving the chair and escaping, and they're like, well, we need to make it so he can't get away anymore. He's stuck at the mic, and then they throw me some coffee and I don't know, a donut every now and then. So what else do we need to cover on you? Have we talked about Crestview Strategy?
I don't know if we talked much about it. It's the world's best consulting firm, of course.
There you go.
Brilliant colleagues north of the border. One more thing I just might mention, Chris,
Yeah.
that we're working on, and the great people at Crestview provide the work on this, but it's a project for the Canadian American Business Council and the province of Quebec and Ontario and others. It's called the North American Rebound. So if people would go to www.northamericanrebound.com, they would be able to sign up for this effort. And what the effort is all about is saying, you know what, in Canada and the United States, we're in this together, whatever this is. We look at economic recovery, we look at pandemic, and the idea is let's not fight against each other. Let's not compete against each other. Let's work together and take on the big challenges of the world. And so that's what the rebound is all about. And I'm really excited and proud of how many people have gotten involved in it, and would welcome anybody who's listening now to check it out. It's free. You sign up, you see if you agree with it. It's kind of motherhood and apple pie with a little maple sprinkles thrown in there. And if people agree with it, they can sign up and be part of that community. So that's another really fun project. And my brilliant colleagues at Crestview Strategy in Toronto are the ones that came up with all of the back office for that, and they run it, and it's a wonderful project.
So we put these up on LinkedIn. So anybody on LinkedIn who's got a business, maybe they're looking to do business in Canada, or they're having issues and they're trying to figure out better ways of doing business in Canada, I say, or going back and forth across the border, eh? Yeah, slip that in there. What's the best way to contact you, and which of the features that?
Well, LinkedIn is a great way, or come to our website. You can also, I've got a Friday afternoon email newsletter that goes out every Friday, and you can sign up for that, and it'll alert you to things. We just created something called an entrepreneur circle, Chris, that I'm really excited about. Because what we realized is the Canadian American Business Council represents the big brands that everybody's heard of. So General Motors, General Mills, Amazon, Google, big companies, and Canadian big brands too. But what we didn't have until a couple of years ago is the voice of entrepreneurs, this, really important economic engine of our countries. But as the Business Council, we were focused on the big players. And so now we have the entrepreneurs involved, and that's a pretty great newish feature. And so people could get involved with the Entrepreneur Circle, with the Rebound, with the Friday newsletter, with the Canosa Street podcast. It's all there on LinkedIn, Chris, and whatever people's particular cup of tea is, we welcome involvement and welcome the conversation.
Most definitely. I mean, that's what we call the Main Street, the entrepreneurs and the small, medium-sized businesses. And those used to be a driving factor in America, and I think they still are for a large part. I mean, especially after COVID, we've seen so many people that have gone into business for themselves. What type of market is? Do you want to throw out some stats for what type of market? If somebody's thinking, well, should I do business in Canada? What type of market is up there? I mean, I don't even know how many people live in Canada. I just know Justin Trudeau's a really good-looking guy doing my call.
So it's a little north of 30 million people. Canada is our number one foreign investor, but they're also the number one customer for 37 of our states, and they're the number 2 for everybody else. So Canada is the leading destination for the leading investor here and the leading destination for our exports. And so they're our best customer already. They're well-to-do, so they have consumer buying power. They're right next door, so your shipping costs are, lower relative to other places in the world. They have similar, a similar history to ours, so they're, the same sensibilities. So whatever you're making, you can probably sell it to Canadians because we share a lot in common. We also manufacture a lot of things together, Chris. The parts and pieces go back and forth, and manufacturing go back and forth across the border. We benefit from this free trade area that it sounds wonky, and it is, but it's true. Our governments years ago figured out how to do business, how to allow businesses to do business with each other without charging additional, duties and tariffs. And that started in the 1940s in the trade of tractors. In the 1960s, they incorporated automobiles into that with the 1965 Auto Pact. And then we had the NAFTA, which is controversial in some quarters, but from a business perspective and manufacturing, it's been incredibly beneficial, right? And then just a couple of years ago, we updated the NAFTA. So there are ways to do business with each other that is much more friction-free than if you wanted to sell to anywhere else in the world. Plus, we share values. There are some places where, as an American, I just don't want to buy something from a country that I don't agree with. I don't want to buy anything that was made in Russia ever.
Yeah,
again.
that's true. That's true. When the big trucking thing shut down, where they had the truckers parking up there and on the bridge, and I saw that you did a video. You were speaking on the news about the impact of the business. I was amazed at how much money goes across that bridge. I had no idea until the news reports started saying, there's like $1 trillion going across that bridge every day.
Yeah. It is the busiest commercial border crossing in the world, the Ambassador Bridge. It connects Detroit and Windsor. And there's more trade that goes across that one bridge than entire U.S. exports to Japan.
Holy crap.
Yeah, right?
Protect that bridge at all costs.
That's right. And there's a new crossing that's being built because the bridge is old and it's privately owned, which is a little bit worrisome to have that kind of critical piece of infrastructure held in private hands, since it's so important for all of us, right? So there's a new bridge that's being built, the Gordie Howe Bridge, and a great hockey player and played for Detroit. So it's perfect as a Detroit bridge. So those crossings are really important in that part of the world, in the Great Lakes. They're so integrated. They have more in common with each other, Chris, than they do with Washington, D.C. or Ottawa, the two nations' capitals.
Yeah. Is there anything we can do to get more Tim Hortons down here? I've never been to a Tim Hortons, but I just hear it's really good. The coffee.
You gotta be kidding me. You've never been to Tim's?
I've never been to Tim's.
You never had a double or a Tim?
I haven't lived yet. I have an In-N-Out burger on the corner.
In-N-Out is delicious, especially if you do the secret menu. Maybe you do animal style. I don't know. But style. You gotta go north of the border. You gotta go to Tim's. You got to dust off your passport.
I do.
And head up there because you're right, it's delicious.
I'm a huge Rush fan, so I'm planning on going to several different Rush the band sites, and doing that a boot, and then of course I don't know. It'd be nice does Second City still have they still do comedy in studios up there, don't they?
Are they doing that again? I don't know. Everything changed during COVID, but
yeah, that's true.
There's a pretty serious comedy scene. You're right, Second City and all that, but also a lot of great Canadians come down to the U.S. and make it big here. Think about Jim Carrey as an example.
That's true. There's a
lot of funny hosers up there.
I'm planning on capturing Justin Bieber, and that way I can repatriate him, take him back, and we're just going to hand him over and just go.
Do they want him? I mean, this is the question.
You don't have a choice.
Could you do a trade? Take Justin Bieber to Canada and bring Drake back here. Can we do that?
Sure, yeah, that's fine with me, man. I'm not into rap. I'm an old rock and roll, classic rock and roll. That's fine with me. Great. I just lost the rap crowd, all two of them.
They're not listening anyway, Chris. It's okay.
Yeah, that's true. They're probably not. Definitely not. That's probably very true. And Celine Dion, you've got to take her back too. Sorry, I'm a hater.
She's
Uh,
I mean, she's just fantastic.
she is wonderful, and she plays in Vegas, so I can't say much bad about her. But I don't know, if I hear that Titanic song one more time, I'm going to shoot myself in the face. So we just do the jokes around here. So what more have we touched on? Because you wear a lot of hats, and I want to make sure we covered all your hats you wear.
Well, we talked about the podcast, Canosa Street. We talked about the North American Rebound Campaign that I hope everybody joins.
Mhm.
We talked about the Canadian American Business Council, and I think that's pretty good. I think that covers the waterfront there.
There you go.
We talked about Crestview Strategy, which is the world's best consulting firm. We have a wonderful operation in London, UK. So if people are trying to figure out how to do business over there, kind of post Brexit, I got a guy for you.
Yeah,
he's very British.
You got a guy.
I got a guy. I got a guy in London. A couple of them, several of them actually.
There you go.
And I've got about 50 colleagues north of the border in Canada. So we've full service consultancy. If you're asking me for the pro, Crestview Strategy. So there you go.
The one thing I'm always trying to understand better, and I don't want to put you on either side of this politically, but the one thing I'm trying to understand is that pipeline that we're trying to get from Canada, or not trying to get from Canada, or whatever we're doing this president or this week. And I've always tried to understand what that's about, and what the real biggest issues are, aside from all the political noise. And I don't know, is there a reason we should get that pipeline finished or not? I know there's some water thing that goes through down here. I know it's not the best oil. I don't know. Do you have any thoughts you want to throw out on that?
Oh, brother, I have strong feelings on that. I am not unbiased. Okay. So let me just start with, as long as we are on oil and gas, which hopefully we're transitioning off of oil and gas into a low carbon future and net zero emissions future. But as long as we're on oil and gas, where do you want to get it from? Do you want to get it from countries that are bad guys, or do you want to get it from Canada? So Canadian oil and gas and all of its resources, hydropower, uranium, you name it, is all developed in an environmentally responsible way. And if you can get that maple flavored oil and gas, hydropower, uranium, all of your needs, Canada should be your first choice. So why is it controversial? It's controversial because, there are people who are pushing for the carbon transition to go faster. And I don't disagree with them, right? We've got to save the planet from global warming. We don't have a planet B, as people say. That's true. And so, you've got this tension between people who say, leave it in the ground, and people who say, if you're going to get it from anywhere, you might as well get it from Canada. The other thing we didn't talk about, Chris, but it's related to all this, is the issue, what's known as critical minerals and rare earths. So things like lithium, zinc, copper, these are elements that go into everything we use on a daily basis, right? Steel making coal, everything that's made of steel, you got to have steel making coal as one of the inputs. And when you think about critical minerals, 80% of the production in the world comes from China. And you know what? They don't do it in a way that's environmentally responsible. They pollute entire rivers. They have forced labor. China is not a great place when it comes to protecting the environment or protecting people. So what can you do about it? Well, why don't we develop critical minerals right here in North America? Why doesn't Canada become the processor of choice? They're really good at developing resources. They have a ton of empty space. They have great regulations, good infrastructure, great partnerships with the indigenous communities. So the way I look at this question of resource development is, where's the place in the world where you can develop it responsibly, take care of the planet, be sustainable, deal with your environmental impact, deal with reclamation, clean up the water, all of that. That's the United States and Canada. It's not China, and it sure as heck isn't Russia right now.
That's very true. And we already, got rid of a bunch of oil from Russia. So, it's interesting. You mentioned the lithium and the rare earth stuff. We're going through that right now. We're realizing supply chains can really muck up the works. And I know chip makers are trying to do more chips here, looking to build more chips here. The rare earth stuff, like you mentioned, I know that they're now looking expanding in what's that lake in California that's all nasty, the Salton Sea.
Oh yeah.
Evidently that thing has like piles of lithium, like just an extraordinary amount of lithium in it. And so now they're starting to switch up to draw that out. And yeah, that just makes sense. I mean, China isn't thank God Russia's kind of failing, but China, has a larger navy than us at this point. I mean, they're on their way to being bad boys if they want to. And they cut us off, and we got a whole host of problems. If we go to war with China. So yeah, I think it's good we're starting to maybe look home base, and yeah, that makes sense that Canada. I mean, you guys have such a humongous amount of, I'm sure, resources up in all that land that you guys have.
Yeah, Canada has, the largest proven reserves of pretty much everything,
Wow.
including fresh water in the world. And again, Canada knows how to develop and protect and sustain its resources in a way that makes a lot of sense. It's not just about going to war with China, God forbid, Chris, but it's also, do you want to be economically dependent on China?
Mm-hmm.
And the answer is no, you don't want to be dependent on them, because you're right. They just turn off the tap anytime they want. They did it with critical minerals a few years ago and caused a huge global crunch, probably 10 years ago. And that was an original wake-up call. And it's, we've hit the snooze several times, but hopefully we're awake to the challenge now, and we're going to figure out how to develop the resources ourselves here in North America. Yep.
We've had a huge review channel for 12, 13 years now, where we review products and stuff. And coming out of COVID, we've had a lot of companies that we work with that send us products, speakers, headphones, amps, everything. And a huge amount of them are just really struggling coming out of COVID on top of everything because they can't get the chips. And like the chips are in everything. And you're just like, wow, who screwed this one up? Or not, someone wasn't paying attention. Yeah, hopefully we're learning from COVID and everything else. Hopefully we learn and do better, I guess.
I think we are learning a lot and getting more clever. I'll just give you one little story about the chips. So General Motors is a member of the Canadian American Business Council, great American car company. And, there are chips in everything, including cars. And they were facing a real crunch in their facilities in Canada and in Detroit. And their engineers got really creative and ended up buying, 50,000 of some entire other product, like in Poland, and brought it over and sold off the rest of the pieces. All they wanted were the chips. And I don't remember if it was tractors or, combines or whatever they bought, but something entirely different, just to get the chips. And they brought them in, and all of a sudden they were stuck in customs.
Oh, wow.
And it was like, oh no. And so this is when people who do government relations for a living spring into action and say, okay, customs, okay, government regulators, we've got a crisis at the factory. Lines are going to stop working. People, we're already delayed enough. And miraculously, they got cleared by customs. And then that was U.S. Customs. And then they got stuck where? At that Ambassador Bridge. So we had to do it again. But General Motors managed to get all those chips to their factories and got the cars made. But that's, they were sweating it for probably an entire week of sleepless nights and how are we going to do this? And they ultimately solved the problem. But things like that go on behind the scenes every single day. And I'm not sure if people sort of appreciate that everything now takes some heroic effort just to do things that used to be automatic, used to be snap of a finger, push of a button, and something would show up. Now everything is harder. But the good news is people are working through it. They're getting really creative. They're figuring out workarounds, and we keep marching on, right?
Yeah, hopefully what people got out of it was an understanding of how global markets work and supply chains. We have a number of authors that have been on that wrote books about supply chains. In fact, one of the authors we had on, he was on his book published right as the supply chains were crashing after COVID, and I'm like, wow, you couldn't have timed that any better. And so hopefully, Americans are learning more and thinking more, and I don't think they really thought much about where their products were sourced from. It's a Walmart. You press the Amazon button and it miraculously appears. and they don't understand, how much global trade it takes. So hopefully they have a better appreciation, and hopefully our governments, the people that run our governments, get wise to make sure that business can flow and we can do more stuff locally, and I think hopefully a lot of things come out of it. So anything more you want to touch on before we go out?
Well, look, I agree with you. Hopefully, we can work together more locally. But also, the bigger lesson here, Chris, I think is, we're all interconnected in this world. We're all brothers and sisters, and we've got to figure out a way to work together wherever things are sourced or supplied, wherever your customers are. It's better to be friends and work together than it is to be in conflict. And that's an example that I think Canada and the United States can show the world. And hopefully people, as serious and stressful as times are, hopefully people will cling to those good news stories and those little glimmers of hope and innovation that have come out of stressful times, like supply chain crunch, like COVID, like the war in Ukraine, and we come out better on the other end. So that would be my hope for all of us.
There you go. Hopefully we'll learn our lessons. Give us all your .coms and stuff for people who can check you out on the interwebs.
All right, you got it. So the podcast is Canosa Street, CANUSA Street. The Canadian American Business Council is CABC.co, and the consultancy is Crestview Strategy. So thank you so much, Chris. It's so great to talk to you.
And thank you for coming on the show. We really appreciate it.
Absolutely. I want to get my own branded hat like you have. I think that's the
I think we got it from Zazzle.
That's, I don't know how I missed that move during all of this time on Zooms. I don't have my own ball. I have everyone else's ball cap. I don't have one for CABC. So that'll be my to-do right after we hang up.
We got the book on the cup, and it's
book on the cup. Yeah, the cup that I have, I don't have it with me today, but it says the coffee mug I have says "You're on mute." Because
wow, there you go.
You have to hold that up at least 10 times a day. You're on mute.
Yeah, sometimes when we have like journalists that are on the big shows like CNN or MSNBC or something, they come on and they're just like, "Yeah, it's a little much there, buddy." But the interesting thing about it is when Google picks up the screenshots on YouTube, and so usually I'm sitting next to, I don't know, John Avlon or some other, Clarissa Ward or somebody from CNN. And so they're beside me. And so it shows up with a show, and people can actually, look at the picture and go, "Oh, he's on a podcast with the Chris Voss Show. We should go check that out." It's like the best advertisement in the world. It's cheeky.
That's fantastic. I didn't even think to put up my backdrop. Next time I will put up a backdrop and try to get some of that.
There you go. You need like a giant maple tree behind you with the whole valve in it, so the maple's coming out into the spigot.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
There you go. And then I don't know, a big maple leaf flag there. I don't know.
Little free brand consulting right here on your podcast. Real time. Amazing.
There you go. There you go. That's what they pay me, the big bucks. Anyway, I certainly appreciate having you on the show, Scotty. Thank you very much. Thanks to my audience for tuning in. We certainly appreciate you guys as well. Remember, go put your arm around that friend, look him deep in the eyes, and say, "Join the family that loves you but doesn't judge you," the Chris Voss Show, the best kind of family there is. Of course, go to youtube.com/Chris Voss, hit the bell notification button, go to goodreads.com/Chris Voss. All of our groups on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, as Scotty reminded me earlier. And make sure you subscribe to the LinkedIn newsletter and the 122,000 LinkedIn member group over there. That's always amazing. LinkedIn is just something else. Anyway, guys, thanks for tuning in. Be good to each other. Stay safe, and we'll see you guys next time.